Welcome to Talk Mental Health with Logan Noone. This is episode 6, Veteran Living with PTSD Unrelated to Combat. And we're live. Cheers, Jeremy, sir.
Thank you.
We're drinking green tea right now. Not an adult beverage.
Nope.
Very nice, green tea. So thank you for being here today. This is Talk Mental Health with Jeremy. We're trying to release this on official PTSD Day.
Yeah.
Which is
June 23rd. Yep.
Wait, 23rd? I think you said 27th.
No. Oh, yeah. Wait, no.
27th.
Yeah.
We already messed up the announcement. Oh, we're off. We'll edit it out. It's fine. It's fine. All right, Jeremy. Well, I want to thank you for coming here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Today we're going to be talking about, you've had experiences with PTSD and insomnia, kind of raveling anxiety a little bit in there too. And you also say that those two experiences were related in some respect, even though they're totally different stressors, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, thanks again for coming in, man. I'm excited to really talk to you. We've been talking about this. When did we kind of start talking about this? Like October?
Yeah, I think we've wanted to do this for a while now. And
okay.
Yeah.
But when did I really first start to get to know you? We played basketball together.
Yeah.
So you're my classmate at medical school. Sorry, I guess we should have led with that.
Yeah,
classmate at medical school. And we got to know each other playing basketball like every Thursday, having fun. And then it was October that you kind of told me what was going on.
Yeah, it started around that time, and then we got towards our finals of last semester towards, what month is that, like?
May.
Yeah. Well, actually, the one before that, semester before that, was that December? Early December? Yeah, that's when all the symptoms of that started coming. I came to you personally about it, and just
what symptoms are you referring to?
So this is more of the insomnia that I had previously, with that final semester. And, I came to you, opened up, and you definitely helped me out.
So why did you feel you wanted to come out and tell me what was going on?
Well, I knew that you had personal mental health issues in the past, and I saw one of your YouTube videos where you just opened up to the whole world, and I thought that was really brave, and I said, well, I probably should open up to somebody about this, and I thought you were just really approachable on the situation. And you knew quite a bit about it, and you had a history of insomnia yourself, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that really helped me to say, okay, well, I can really relate with this guy, and hopefully he's got some tips, and you did, and it helped out perfectly.
Yeah, man. Well, insomnia was my first kind of symptom of mental illness. That's when I knew that something wasn't wrong. And I've said this, on the podcast and in all my videos. As soon as I went to Scotland, I was struggling with jet lag, but that jet lag lasted months. It just couldn't go away. And at first, I think that's why I was ignoring the insomnia, because I just automatically attributed to jet lag. Yeah. And, maybe not being able to get right with the rhythm, the sun rhythm. Circadian rhythm?
Circadian.
I always say that word wrong, so I'm hesitant to say it. Yeah. Whatever. I'm not going to try again. But, that was what I was attributing it to, so I was ignoring the fact that I was having terrible anxiety every single night. So, thanks again for opening up to me back in, I think it was October or December. And, we've grown close over them, still playing basketball. You're still schooling me basically every week.
Yeah, you got me in golf, though. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We're going golfing after this for all the listeners. Let's go. So, meet one of our other homies out there. But let's get into the deets now, man. So, you started experiencing the PTSD much before that insomnia in this past term.
Yes, yeah. So, we can go into the story of that soon. But that started in 2012 when I was in the military. Okay. It was my first year in the military, and that started about December time, and I still experience symptoms, but so about 6 years now. So that's pretty much the time frame of that. And the insomnia didn't really expose itself but only until medical school did I start really experiencing insomnia. Okay. And I had nightmares more related with the symptoms with PTSD than insomnia. And and I didn't really know what it was when I came to insomnia, and just trying to understand it.
Yeah. So now you joined the military right after high school, right?
Yep. So I did 1 year of community college. I've always had that urge to serve my country, and I wanted to get out of a small town that I was in. So I joined the military, I joined the United States Army, and I was an infantryman for 4 years, got out, I met my wife while I was in the military, and she was going to medical school, or she was planning to go to medical school, and I was like, well, I gotta do something. So I
gotta step my game up.
Exactly. So I was like, all right, it's time, and I went to school, and I went to undergrad, and we applied together, and we both got in.
Dude, the Dr. Wrights.
Yeah,
the two wonderful Dr. Wrights in the class of 2021. Well, hell yeah, man. Yeah. So prior to, when this PTSD started for you in the military, childhood, did you have any significant mental health issues, or was it a happy childhood? Were you kind of just a normal kid?
Yeah. So as a child, in Florida.
Florida, eating alligators for dinner.
Not all the time. I'm not an expert on I don't know why everybody thinks being from Florida you're an expert on alligators.
Wait, I thought to graduate high school in Florida you had to wrestle an alligator as just part of your courses.
Yeah, no.
No, that's not no. Oh, damn. Okay. All right.
But so in Florida, I guess growing up I did have some issues. And mostly it was related to my mother leaving me as a child and leaving me with my father. My dad said I had a lot of issues growing up through school and different daycare services and stuff like that. And I think it just passed on probably under the books of different symptoms of different diseases or growing up in developmental issues.
Okay.
And for the most part, I feel that I had a pretty good childhood, but I'd say that's a huge factor. Probably my mom leaving when I was a kid and just growing up without, and just things kind of snowballing, I guess, from there.
Okay.
But I wouldn't attribute most of my symptoms nowadays to that, but I know in that a traumatic event prior to a PTSD diagnosis, it's a risk factor. So and
not even for just PTSD, it's like all mental illness. Some sort of trauma in the beginning of life can have such a big impact on how the brain develops.
Absolutely.
I'm basically talking out of my butt right now, considering we're first year med students. One day on this podcast, I'll be able to educate you on really the intricacies of that all. But hey, first year med student, chill out. We can only ask questions on respiratory, cardio, MSK. Okay, chill out. But getting back to our stories, so you did experience some trauma as a child. You didn't have the picture perfect childhood. You had certainly some stressors. But went off to the military. When you were in the military at first, once again, kind of same question. Were you feeling good? Were you happy you went to the military? Were you resentful?
No, I'm actually absolutely proud, and I honor the moment to have served my country.
Okay.
And there's no resentment going back now or thinking about it, and going in either. So, I mean, everything was great. I mean, my military time, I had... the 4 years was an amazing experience and really made me to the person I am today. So there's no resentment. No.
Yeah. It's sometimes hard to relate to someone who went through an experience like you did. Not really the childhood is what I'm referring to, but the Army. When I was 18 years old, I was off at college, basically partying like an idiot, having a good time and studying. And here you are entering into the military as a young man. That's just such a different experience. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the ages of 16 through 25 are such an important pivotal years.
Absolutely.
And so that really, built your character and development. And I still need to learn more about the kind of military psyche and just how that impacts how someone develops or just thinks and whatever. Yeah. So now I think all the listeners, when they're hearing this, military guy, joined military right after high school. Yeah. And then, we're going to talk about PTSD. So I think everyone's assuming that this is a combat-related story, which it's not.
No.
So let's get into that.
So my military service, we mostly stayed and deployed to countries like Thailand, Korea, and we stayed in the Pacific. We didn't go to Afghanistan or Iraq. But so my military was non-combatant. And with that, though, I was stationed in Hawaii, and I would go out and hang out with friends and go out downtown and stuff like that, and mostly hanging out with guys that kind of like to party. I was young, going out partying a lot, just trying to live it up. And when I was in that kind of, not really in that scene, but more so just going out partying, I didn't really think about any of these situations ever popping up with a certain circumstance that's coming. But with that, through association, through different things, there was a gang member or a gang down in the downtown Hawaii. And we had just went out one night, just grabbed a couple of drinks, and we were heading back. And coming back from that event, it happened so quickly. By seconds into it, my friend got jumped.
Well, so the friend got jumped.
Let's make sure we have all.
You and your buddies were just out on the town, right? Just having like a good time, boozing, whatever, just having yourself a good time, whatever.
Yeah.
And then so I remember, like, you said that kind of like just an argument or something escalated at a bar, as they tend to do.
Oh no, it wasn't really an argument at the bar.
Okay.
Just we were just out having a drink and came back from dinner, and they just missing identity of who my friend was in association with another gang fight, from what we learned later on.
Okay.
And they saw him and automatically thought he was part of a past event. And
he was somehow linked to the gang.
Wrong time, wrong place. And he wasn't at any time related to any gang or anything like that.
Damn.
But so the gang it was like a group of 8 or 9 of them. They associated him with that event, and by association, since I was with my friend, they jumped both of us. So it was 2 against 9. There's
Dude.
8 or 9.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so we first thing I remember, we were walking back to our car, and out of nowhere, he's like, "You better get ready. These guys are coming at us." Because he grew up in a situation very similar to gang violence and stuff in his past. And he just knew what was about to happen. And I didn't understand it at first. And they just ran up on us. And one guy just knocked out my friend, one hit. And there's like 4 or 5 of them just surrounded my friend. And they start kicking him and stuff. And next thing I knew, I was with another guy. I was holding him right in front of me. I was holding him. And I was looking at him in his face, and I just remember a guy came up behind me, and he grabbed me by my shoulder and just jabbed a knife right into my side very slowly. And then he pulled out and he jabbed me again and again. And
so how many times total?
3.
Damn.
So I got stabbed
Right
3
side?
times. Yeah, on my right side. At an immediate response, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I knew I just had to stay alive and keep this knife from going any further or any spot that would have killed me. And so I'm wrestling with the guy in front of me, and I got the guy behind me stabbing me, and I threw the guy in front of me at the guy behind me and tried to just back up and try to swing. And I knew if I went down that these people were going to kill me. Yeah. And I just, at that moment, I just said, okay, just stay alive, try to get these guys away from your friend so they don't kill him. And I just back up and I kept swinging and trying to get out of it. And then out of nowhere, they all just said, let's go. And they start running. Damn. And they ran away. And I just remember looking over at my friend. He's knocked out cold. His face is bleeding. He's not even conscious. And I look at him, and my side is just killing me. Yeah. I couldn't breathe. I collapsed lung blood. Bleeding out. And I just remember trying to get him up, and he wouldn't wake up. And I was like, get up. And it took me a while. And then I got him up, and him and I started walking away, and I'm just holding my side. Just my lung had collapsed at that moment. And I was bleeding out of my whole side, my abdomen. Mm-hmm. And I start walking towards this pole at the main strip and trying to get back to that pole. I can barely walk over there. And he just sits me down on the pole. He didn't realize what had happened. He was unconscious, and he tags down a policeman. The policeman comes up, sees right away that I was stabbed, and calls the ambulance, and I'm going in and out of it. Some guy that was walking down the strip saw me, and I'm saying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Mm-hmm. And he's just saying, you're not going to die. You're not going to die. I got you, man. And he's just like trying to keep me aware of my situation. I'm going in and out of it. And, I'm having like out of body experiences, so much pain. And I just remember the ambulance comes up and kind of starts getting foggy from that situation. They start, injecting IV and trying to get me to stay aroused and awake. And I'm carted off to the ER and there in Hawaii. And I go into the ER. They take me straight to one of the rooms and they rip all my clothes off right away. And I'm laying there naked underneath the fluorescent lights, and I'm scared. And I'm like, is this it? Am I going to die? Like, everything's just going so fast. And I remember just sitting on that table naked in front of a group of 8 members at the hospital, and the doctor walked in, and at that moment I said, everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, this guy's got me. Like,
so up until that point, that moment, geez, you thought you were gonna die, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So can you like remember how that feels? Like, just that your brain must have been going crazy right then.
Absolutely. I mean, I was young. I said, this can't be it.
How old were you?
I was, I think, 19 or 20 at that time.
Damn, baby Jeremy.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Damn.
And I was just scared. Most of all, I didn't want to die. I mean, as a military member, you are faced with the fact that if you go to war, you have to say, okay, do I want to die for this cause? And automatically it goes straight to my head. Yeah, that's what I want to do. That's, I served my country. I want to serve my country. I don't want to die in war, but at the same time, I'm willing to risk my life for my country. And that's something every military man asks themselves. And I think just when it hit me, like, oh man, I may actually die at this moment, I was scared. I think I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know. I was alone by myself, no family out there in Hawaii. That's pretty much it. No,
man, that is heavy. And I can't even imagine you going through that. Yeah. And just the pain and, like, listening to you tell this story, it is very hard for me to relate because I haven't almost died. I haven't been stabbed, anything. Never been in the military. I'm completely civilian. But I've had elements of PTSD that are very related to my car accidents.
Absolutely.
And just listening to you tell that story, and I could see, we're not filming this video camera. I can see that you remember every single little detail, about those. It probably was only 10 minutes, not even. It seems like some whatever. But I bet you can remember everything about that because it is just such the most stressful moment your body has ever been in.
Yeah,
literally, and you came as close to death as you probably have ever come. So, the ER doc came in the room and chest tubed you, right?
So I think they did the MRI first, and just to look if any of the abdomen structures were damaged or something like that. Thinking back to it now, as a medical student, that's probably what they started with. They did start with that, but that's why they did it. And then I remember the anesthesiologist came in and said, "Hey, we have to put you under. You're going off to the OR." And they sent me off to the operating room. Woke up, probably had been 5 or 6 hours later. They did a search through my stomach for any other damaged structures and then placed a chest tube at the same time. And I just remember waking up. I was a little out of it from the drugs and stuff. And my friend had walked in the room. He was all right. And he's like, "Man, I'm so sorry."
He was better off than you?
Yeah, he just had a couple of scratches on his face. Nothing happened. And
damn.
I'm very glad, that nothing, because he looked like he was taking the worst beating than I was.
Yeah.
And he went out in the first, couple seconds, and but I'm glad he was okay. And I mean, we just looked at each other in that moment, and you can tell that we're just both glad that we made it through that. Because it could have turned south real quick.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one or two more stabs, too. Yeah, could have been a totally different storyline. I might even not have been talking to you right now.
Okay.
That is heavy, man. So you spent like 5 days in the hospital, right?
At the first hospital, yeah.
Okay.
And then I was probably in the hospital a total of 3 weeks.
Oh,
after
wow.
That. Yeah. And, just trying to each day open my lung back up because it collapsed and, just going through with the pain. And
so did the wound only really impact your lung? It didn't hit any other structure?
No, I got very lucky in my abdomen.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't. It was one of the stabs is very close to my liver, but it must have dissected right through one of the channels that didn't have any arteries or anything. So I got very lucky there. And then, but my lung collapsed, and I still have symptoms with my lower lung lobe. More like wheezing.
Right lower lobe.
Yeah.
Yep. Did you aspirate in there at lunch?
Yeah.
All right. But damn. All right. So getting back to the meat of this.
Yeah.
So you spent those 3 weeks into the hospital, and then you left. And I imagine I make this statement a lot with my hospital experience. I just wanted to get out of the hospital. Like, the hospital's not a fun place to be. And for me, I always thought, like, this is going to be the worst of it. But once I leave, once I'm healed, like, I'll feel way better. What was your experience?
Well, I think mine was very similar. I knew I wanted to get out of the hospital, and they kept me drugged up the whole time. So I don't remember much of my hospital experience, and I didn't have any family because I'm from Florida, and that's a long trip all the way out to Hawaii, and I didn't have any family there, and I just had like a very nice nurse to help me out, and kind of wanted to get back to my unit, my military unit, and feel safe and surrounded by, friends that I talk to every day.
Yeah.
They came to visit me some often, but they had things they had to do. But I knew I just wanted to get out, and I wanted to, and I've ran my whole life, and I've been really good. I ran cross country. I ran in the Army. I was a 10-mile runner in the Army. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I was one of the top in my battalion. And I knew that I didn't want to lose that part of me, like that I was, one of the top soldiers in my battalion. I didn't want to lose my health. I didn't want to lose any of those things. So I knew I wanted to get right back to where I was before with running and, dealing with the collapsed lung. And so.
Damn. So how is physically, how did your lung recover? Would you say you're back at 100%?
I think I probably never go back to 100%. I still have problems with my right lower lobe, or just that area. Deep breaths hurt for a long time. In 6 months, if I took a deep breath, I feel
really 6
pain.
months. Wow.
Yeah, and it would feel like a scratching or rubby feeling.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was hard to go through. And then after that, about 6 or 7 months after that, I started running again, taking it slowly each day. And it was coming back from that recovery. I just slowly, made small steps and goals for myself. And I would say I'm really not back fully, but I don't think I ever could be. But I'm well off.
You still run way better than I do. Let's be damn sure about that. When I guard you on the course, I'm like, God, chill out, bro.
That's what I count on.
I might have size, but definitely not speed. But damn, man, okay, so, physically you were able to make a, strong recovery, dude. At least to me, it seems like it's at 100%. But obviously I'm sure you were a freak of nature athlete prior to that. Now, when did the elements, though, of the PTSD start to really emerge?
So I didn't really even understand PTSD. And at that time, I just... I kind of waved off all of my symptoms as a kind of military member. You kind of just go through this. When you're in the military, there's always that hidden like macho that you got to be the man that you got to be for that person next to you. And you don't really think about, what's going on with myself. What am I feeling right now? You think about how am I going to, in the combat situation, how am I going to help my friend next to me? And you don't really want to show signs of weakness when you're in the military. You don't want people to think that they can't count on you. So I really tried to shake everything that really came to me in the military as like, okay, I'll get on. This will go away. And I just got to be strong for everybody else around me. And I learned afterwards that that's not even close to the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So
does the military, since so much of the military has people that have experienced PTSD, do they at all try to educate the men and women of the military prior to their combat exposure, or, you know, be like, you are susceptible to this?
I don't think I really remember any training. There's probably something there, but I don't really remember.
You weren't paying attention?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I was just thinking about the weekend, yeah. But so I don't remember there being specific training on education on PTSD or mental health, but it is very largely covered in the military, and there is a large push to really help out veterans with any mental health disease.
Certainly, man. And it's a huge need. I'm willing to maybe go work in the VA in the future just because I'd love to help those men and women that experience just wild stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's needed. Yeah, very much
definitely,
needed.
Man. So, you know, what did a symptom of PTSD look like, feel like? After, you know, was it in you while you were still in the hospital or once you were back home?
I think it took me a while to start seeing it. It wasn't more of the acute phase where it was just right after I started associating. When I was seeing people around, I was, you know, kind of. It took me a while. I would say about 6 months after that. I was kind of to myself after that. Kind of stayed in my barracks room and didn't go out. Didn't really hang out with people that much.
Were you medically discharged?
No. I served my 4 years in honorable discharge. And, but at the same time, right after the hospital event, I went back to my barracks. I kind of hung out. I was on, leave for a while trying to recover. And I stayed to myself. They had different, missions that they had to go off on. So I was by myself quite a bit of the time. And I think that's probably when most of my symptoms really started to manifest. And I just didn't notice them because I wasn't going out. I wasn't talking to people. And, you know, I wasn't really thinking about it right after. So I think, around 6 months, it started to, when everybody started coming back and I started hanging out with people and going out, just going out to dinner and stuff, I started to notice that when I was in large crowds of people that I would keep my back to a wall in a hard place because I didn't want anybody coming up behind me again, like that situation. And I think I was just hyper vigilant and very aware of my surroundings. And you kind of are trained in the military to be aware of your surroundings, especially when you're out on tour or anything. And I think just those signs just showed up a lot larger after that. And I just would pay attention to my environment a lot more, people around me. I would try to really understand what they were doing in that public situation. Are they here just for dinner? Are they here to hang out with their family? What are they doing? You know, large groups of friends, I'd watch out for any gang member tattoos. I would just look for it just to keep myself aware. And it was just kind of stressful in that crowded environment to constantly be thinking about, am I going to be stabbed again? Am I going to? So that's when I started noticing those symptoms. And another symptom that came up after a while was nightmares. But it was a reoccurring nightmare. It was a reoccurrence that instead of being stabbed, I was shot. And I just remember waking up from the same dream, lying on that pole that I was on and bleeding out. And that happened quite a bit. And it would happen probably every 2-3 weeks while I was in the military.
Wow.
And
but were the flashes only when you slept, or did you ever get them during the day?
So the thing with flashes or going back and thinking about the situation, I didn't really think about the situation itself, but I would play out these scenarios in my mind.
Dream, that you were saying.
Yeah, not the dream so much, but the going out into public.
What if it went just a little different way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How would I change that situation? How would have I done differently if I could go back?
How close you came to death.
Yeah.
Like a couple things could have happened, and man, dude, you came super close to just, you know, and so I imagine so you're just kind of always in this tough state of mind because you said when you weren't having the nightmares and whatever, and you were out with your homies, you know, or Hunter at that time.
We met a couple of years
and,
later.
You know, but you're basically, when you're awake, you're always in that like sympathetic state of mind, just like always amped up. And then, when you went to sleep, you said occasionally you would have these terrible, terrible nightmares.
Yeah.
Or just like constantly playing out, well, like, what if this happened? What if this happened? What if I had reacted this way? Would I have been better off? Would my friend have been better off? Whatever. I imagine it's a terrible place, terrible way to try to live. And being that you're always so energized through that sympathetic response, were you having trouble sleeping right then?
I've always had issues with sleep, and I've been able to, in the military, you kind of learn to go off of, 4 or 5 hours of sleep and make it each day. So I never attributed not sleeping to that PTSD, more so just, that's my my occupation. I'm in the military, I have to do what I got to do each day, and I have to wake up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever the call be. And so I've never related insomnia or not sleeping to that, but it probably overlapped quite a bit with the occupation and symptoms. But the nightmares hit me big, and I would say avoidance, just avoidance of large crowds, keeping my back to a wall.
Were you depressed then too?
Not really, no. Okay. I don't think I ever got depressed. I had a lot of good friends, but I mean, at the initial stage right after, I couldn't really talk to anybody about it. But I had a lot of good friends in the military, I could talk to quite a bit after. And depression wasn't one of the symptoms that I ended up having. So
when did you, at any point during, dealing with these nightmares and this heightened state of awareness where, you're always just thinking, like protecting yourself. And I imagine a lot of veterans constantly are in that state of mind. Yeah. When did you seek out any means of mental health care?
So I would say we did a training event, probably.
We being the military?
Military, yes, yeah. About a year after, or I'd say about 8 months to 9 months after. We did a training event where we went off for, I think it was about 2 months. And we were out in the field a lot, running missions, just not able to seek help at that time. And when I came back, I was really trying to, understand that situation and what happened to me. Didn't really think about it when I was out in the field. Whenever I was out in the field, for some reason, my mind would just clear of all that. Mm-hmm. And I would say, okay, well, you got to pay attention to what you're doing right now. You have to, do your job in this mission or you do that. And so I never really thought about it. And then when I would be back in garrison or when you're not out in the field, I would just constantly think about those situations, like first responder situations. What would I do if active shooter was right here? Mm-hmm. What if somebody got stabbed right now? What would I do? And I still have those thoughts today, like what would I do if I was that first responder or something happened to me right now or something happened to these group of people, what would I do? And I realized that I was, having all these symptoms like avoidance, that nightmare. The nightmare was the main thing that got it for me because I didn't understand everything else. I just related it to being in the military.
Well, and I imagine avoidance, this is going to sound dumb. Avoidance is an easy thing to avoid or ignore. That's what I'm trying to say. It's
no.
Because, it's just like, my behavior is sort of changing. And like maybe your friends could even notice avoidance. Yeah. In some capacity, but I don't think many friends would call you up and be like, I think you're experiencing avoidance right now. Like, you should speak to a professional. Yeah. As much as I'd like them to. It's not going to happen. But nightmares you can't really avoid. Like, that is vivid, scary, like, oh man, dude. Yeah. Okay, so you're having the bad nightmares and you finally made the phone call to the VA or how?
No, I just went to my platoon leader and I said, look, I'm having all these, thoughts of like nightmares. No, suicidal thoughts though. Yeah. No depression, no suicidal thoughts. And I was having these nightmares and hypervigilant and large crowds and stuff like that. I was like, I need to do something. Mm-hmm. And they sent me to a therapist. And in the military, it's kind of hard to keep a schedule with a therapist because you're constantly, at least for the infantry, you're constantly going out on missions and going out to the field. So it's hard to keep a schedule, and that didn't really help me that much. Mm-hmm. I only got to opening up to the therapist about the story, and not much followed from it.
Okay. So at that point, you had tried to seek some means of mental health care, going to see a therapist. Wasn't the best help. So how did you go about managing your at this point, did you identify that as PTSD at least? Did you really I have PTSD from this?
She being my therapist, was the one that identified it. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and with that, I didn't understand anything about PTSD. I was like, wow, I didn't even go out to combat. Like, there's no way I can experience this right now. I have squad leaders that have been shot in the face, people I've seen with their legs blown off. Like, that's PTSD. I don't have any of that. There's no way I could experience what they experienced and have associated symptoms that they have.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can't compare one man's tragedy to another. And
I like what you just said right there because, I've been trying to relate the best I can throughout this conversation to this, but like I keep saying, like, dude, I've shot a gun like 5 times in my life. Like, I'm a Sally. Like, it's fine. It's not for me. And like, so that like military state of mind is something so far removed from what I've lived. But, you describing this experience of constantly being aware or constant having nightmares. Looking back, I remember I totaled my dad's Jeep a week after I got my license, like a total moron. Just going down this hill, the famous, if anyone's listening from Litchfield, Connecticut, the wet leaves. Which it damn was rainy and there was a lot of leaves, okay? Those things are slippery. If you have ever, listeners, have ever slipped on wet leaves, okay? This is what happened. And I also, it was a big V8 Moda in that Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's actually basically the same year of that Jeep I'm driving now. I have totaled one of those. Actually, it was a little, but floored it, basically, spun the wheels out, hit a wall, flipped over the entire thing once, and landed fine. And I hopped out of the car and I didn't even have a scratch. Yeah. But I definitely had like a mental harm. Cause dude, like I remember my parents basically forced me to keep driving cause I was like so afraid to drive. I just didn't think I could hack it. Like a week after I got my license, and they knew I was a good driver, but I also had this like I love speed sort of side of me, and just like burning out the back tires and stuff, having fun in cars. And I just was obsessed with cars. So they always were so afraid that I was going to do something stupid. And lo and behold, a week later, freaking total dad's Jeep. The company, literally, it was a company car. And the policy was that, offspring of an employee can drive the car. That's fine. After I crashed and totaled that thing, the whole company policy changed. The Logan Noone policy. Yeah, no more offsprings, spouses only. You're an idiot, John Noone. Don't ever let your son drive this thing again. But that being said, I had those same nightmares, dude. Yeah. And like there was this one, the road I crashed on was the easiest way to get home from my house from school. And I grew up in a really rural area. There wasn't that many roads and that many different ways to get home to my house. But for like months after, I would purposely take the wrong turn and take long ways home because I couldn't drive past that area.
I have very, very similar to that. So with that pole that I was lying on when I was bleeding out and scared, I revisited that pole a long time after, and I remember just kind of being dissociative and not really being able to be in the moment. I was kind of out of my body looking at the pole and just like kind of lightheaded and couldn't think. And but going back to that pole, it helped me really understand what had happened, and it brought all back the memories and everything. And I think it was a good thing. I remember just looking at the pole and I said, well, wow, I made it through that,
Yeah.
And it's funny actually because my wife now, Hunter, if you're listening, I love you, that I met down there in downtown Honolulu, she lived a block away from that pole.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so the first time I met my wife, we were a block away from that. And I could just remember thinking that was the back alley right across the road right there. We were up at this pool overlooking the back alley. And I said, look, it's the back alley I almost died on. And I didn't tell her that. I didn't want to scare her off.
I feel you like, yo, baby girl. Like, I almost died over there. But girl, when I look at those eyes, you're all I can think about. And she was like, oh, Jeremy, like, your heart is mine forever. But that is hilarious, man. Yeah. That is so funny. So you like kind of conquered that demon of facing that head on. I know we have a tea time in about 15 minutes. Yeah. So let's try to at least work on now getting back into the grits of it and what the listeners can benefit the most out of. You said therapists at that point didn't really help you because you just didn't have that consistency. Maybe you also didn't connect with anyone you really liked that much.
Yeah, and it was a huge factor. I didn't connect with my therapist like I probably could have if I had more time and, more reoccurring interviews with her.
Yeah. So what did you do to manage your PTSD?
In the military, nothing. I kind of just hung out with my friends, tried to just, keep on playing that macho card of like, I got to do what I got to do. And it wasn't until I started going to undergrad that it really hit me like that I was kind of more alone on undergrad because I was out of the military. I didn't know anybody at the college I was going to. I'm with my wife at this time. And I just remember I was in undergrad. I was like, wow, I really got to do something about this. These nightmares are reoccurring even more. And I'm getting more and more anxious and,
like every night crowd. Sort of thing, or once a week sort of thing?
Yeah, more so it was about a week, every week, And I feel that when I was in class, like I would just think about what if somebody came in right now with a knife and try to stab me, and I would always be thinking about those first responder situations, like what would I do? What do I do? Try to prevent those situations. And I was like, wow, this is getting really out of control. So that's when I started seeing somebody else, but again, I wasn't consistent with it, and the therapist didn't help, and I just didn't stay on that track. And I kind of have since then learned to understand that happened to me. Yes, it was fucked up, and that I can't change it. And the thoughts that I have now, I can change those. And I've taken that path of saying, okay, I'm more of a self-cognitive behavioral and trying to understand that those things that happened, I can change how I think about it, but I can't change that.
Yeah.
And that's really helped. And the nightmares have gone over time. They just kind of faded away. I don't really have it much anymore.
So you're saying just mostly with time, or like you mentioned this self kind of cognitive, this self-thinking. I mean, for me, I definitely relate to that, but those lessons that I learned I do relate a lot back to my therapist. I saw a therapist consistently. I was lucky. I found like my third therapist and talked with him for like a solid 3 years, maybe it started out every week to like every 2 weeks to once a month or so. And then I took a long break, and then I have actually just started to go seek a therapist again. But I don't always think it needs to be perfectly consistent, because you can take those lessons and those things that they say and apply them to your real life and like self-heal. And so, I mean, what kind of thinking practices, what mantras do you try to use in your own head to sort of alleviate any of those symptoms of PTSD? Or also, maybe did you read a pivotal book or watch a pivotal documentary that really kind of helped you?
I think just hearing about it and passing about, just cognitive behavior and what it does. My wife, Hunter, she is has a background in psychology, and just hearing it in passing, and then I think something on the MCAT. I ended up studying about something about cognitive behavior therapy, and I was like, wow, that's a great way of thinking about it. You don't let it manifest and continue to grow this monster if you just think about it differently. Yeah, and that really helped me, and I think I just did everything right too. I was exercising, doing a lot of just taking care of myself mentally. And, I found a good group of study buddies when I was in the undergrad. So that helped too. And just, over time, I started to realize when I go out into large crowds, I was like, hey, you're okay. Nobody's going to do anything right now. This is going to be okay. Nobody's going to come up behind you and stab you. And I kind of just talk myself through it whenever I start to see that.
Yeah.
And I still get sometimes, like, if I feel like somebody's following me in a car behind me, I'm like, okay, well, why is this person following me? I'm like, okay, they're just going home.
Yeah. So you still have those elements of heightened awareness.
Yes, yeah.
Anxiety, basically.
Yeah, and then, anxiety, I guess we haven't touched on that, but anxiety.
Well, you know what? You've done such an incredible job today, dude, telling your story, and I have so much respect for you opening up. Yeah, I mean, we've been recording now for 44 minutes, and I think it's essentially all you talking. So you've been doing a fantastic job just sharing all the details of the story, man. And I think what we're going to have to do is split this into a two-parter.
All right.
Because I need one for every week anyway, so you basically have to come back. I'm forcing you.
Okay.
Because I think the second part of this story, we really should get into then, because we're in the state of recovery where you're doing well with at least the management of your PTSD symptoms and sort of having some anxiety here and there. Yeah. You were taking any medication for the anti-PTSD?
No medication for anxiety, but mostly just for sleeping. I was taking Ambien.
Okay, just to help with the sleep.
Yeah,
okay.
Just for the sleep. No benzos.
Okay.
Some of that came later with last semester.
Okay, well, let's leave that for the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, dude, this has been a badass story. I think a lot of listeners are going to really appreciate you saying, and then it's going to be cool because then listeners can come back, and when we do the second part, hear how you were doing well, but then you started to have some different sort of anxiety in medical school.
Yep.
And people think, like, once we're in medical school that it's all peachy and, like, we made it and everyone's so perfectly happy, but it's very, very difficult. Medical students, physicians are actually at a higher probability of, substance abuse, divorces, or just being totally burned out and unsatisfied with their job. So I think in that second part, when we talk about anxiety, it's going to be really beneficial for listeners, and a lot like episode 3 with Nilu, where she talked about her anxiety. So we can kind of like compare and contrast like your experiences with that, what you did to manage it. One thing you were talking about with the cognitive behavior stuff, there's one thing my therapist gave me, this little card, and I don't have the card anymore, but I still remember it like perfectly. And this is something that I use to kind of alleviate anxiety when I'm in the crazy moment. And I've made a YouTube video about this. I'll put a link in the show notes, or I'll figure out how to do that. I always say that, but I don't really know how to do that. So I don't, like, that's what all the pros say on podcasts. They're like, the show notes. I'm like, do I have show notes? I don't freaking know. But okay, the multiple test, all right? It's super, super simple. So anyone listening, like, maybe in your state of mind this could have helped you too, but this is at least what I did when I experienced significant anxiety. Okay, whatever's bothering me right now, a minute from now, is this going to continue to bother me? The answer most likely is still probably yes, a minute from now. But then it's like, okay, 10 minutes from now, 1 hour from now, 6 hours from now, and then like a day. And then I just kind of keep like extending that out until the answer is like always no. Like, okay, am I going to think about this moment, this anxiety where, I'm worried about whatever. It doesn't even really matter. But a year from now, am I still going to be thinking about this? Like, no. And so that's that. I guess it's cognitive behavior therapy. I don't really know. I don't know what category. I'm not a therapist here. First year med student, okay? Get your facts straight. And, but that's what I use. So, all right. So let's close this podcast off. Part 1 of the podcast. Part 2, we'll do more anxiety as a med student. We'll call it that. It'll be dope.
Let's do it.
But what would you say to someone sitting in this room who had, whether they're a civilian, a veteran like you, who has gone through some crazy trauma that's given them elements of PTSD? What would you encourage them to go do first and manage what they're going through?
I would say each individual is different, but my thing, if I could have, is to stick with a therapist. Immediately seek out help, seek a therapist, and try to understand what happened to you. Talk to people that have had a story like this. Try to watch YouTube videos of somebody explaining it to you. Mm-hmm. Try to understand what is going on to you and why you're feeling these things and why are these symptoms coming up. And once you start to understand it and you talk to somebody, it's less of a monster. Mm-hmm. And you stop trying to feed that monster and it goes down. And seeking help is the main thing, and talking to people.
Okay. Well, hell yeah, man. I mean, it sounds so simple, but just that simple of the act of like talking to, like you said, the first person you talked to was your platoon leader.
Yeah.
Like, of course it always is good to go seek a therapist like we talked about, but even just if that idea of going to talk to a therapist is super intimidating, talk to anybody. Like, I think the worst way to handle any sort of mental health crisis is alone. Like, we all go through elements that we can relate to one another, and each of one of our experiences is, of course, unique, but we can always relate to one another. So if we open up about these things that we're struggling with, it makes everything so much easier. And you kind of can take that ownership over. And, like, even me and you today, I thought I was going to really struggle relating to this story, to be honest. But, my car accidents really kind of, like, when you were describing what you were going through, it's like, oh, yeah, like, I've gone through something similar. I certainly have never been stabbed and almost died, but definitely through something similar. Well, dude, excellent job today. Super cool. I'm sure the listeners are going to love this one too, man. Yeah. So we're going to read this. Today is National World PTSD Day?
I just know it's PTSD.
Come on, Jeremy.
Yeah, okay, we'll
you
figure it out.
call yourself an honors med student.
27th.
Unbelievable.
June 27th.
All right, June 27th. It's National or World PTSD Day.
And it is PTSD month. June is the month of PTSD Awareness.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
Nice. Do you guys have a color?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, because mental health is lime green. That hat's got lime green, so technically it counts. PTSD is mental health, so whatever. Well, dude, excellent job. We'll have you back for part 2. You guys enjoyed the podcast. You can comment below, reach out to our homie Jeremy. He'll be linked on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. We'll figure it out. And yeah, thanks for listening, Jeremy.
Thanks for
job
having me,
today, man. And that is a wrap on episode 6. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today. If you are not already subscribed, please subscribe. Give me that 5-star rating, son. Give me that 5 stars. If you give me a 4-star rating, just press subscribe. I don't even want you. I'm just kidding. That's cool too. Next week, we have on my close friend Laura. She's going to be talking about anxiety and what she goes through, how she deals with it. But once again, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it so much.